Hello, and howdy. I am speaking to you from within a walk-in freezer which is located in the remains of a Chili's restaurant, which is located in the remains of Austin, which is located deep in the heart of Texas. And Texas is located in the middle of the post-apocalyptic wasteland called America, or formerly called America. I mean, it depends on who you ask. Some people still call it America. A lot of people just call it the wasteland, if they even refer to it at all. Some people are still trying to make the whole Republic of Texas thing happen, as if that would change anything now. One group, or cult really, calls it Bebo Play Golf's new and better country for erstwhile American religionists. Thankfully, their compound is out in Houston somewhere. I'm also thankful for the fact that they cooked up a religion with such debilitatingly confusing dogma. These folks have an awful lot of guns, but I'm told you can scare them off with rude gestures. And apparently, gazing upon genitals, or maybe just having them, is a big no-no amongst Papa Play Golf's acolytes. I was told that a man showed his wiener to one of Bebo's missionaries and she gouged her own eyes out on the spot. And assuming any of this is true, I suspect there's a nightmare of mutilated flesh lurking beneath those space blanket robes they wear. Sorry, I got sort of carried away. I've been working on cataloging the various cults that we have here. Anyway, America is located somewhere on the remains of the planet Earth, and Earth is located in orbit around a star called Sol, and Sol is one of 100,000 million stars located in orbit around a black hole, called Gary. And all of these stars and Gary are called the Wilkie May Galaxy. The Wilkie May is one of approximately 125 billion galaxies floating around in empty space, and the empty space is located in a sort of conceptual bubble containing everything that exists, and this is called the universe. The universe may possibly be expanding into a sort of conceptual void infinitely full of non-existence, and the universe may possibly reach a sort of expansion threshold causing the whole thing to collapse back in on itself, which may possibly cause a big explosion, which may possibly cause everything to start expanding again, which might cause the whole cycle of existence to repeat, possibly in the same way as before, in which case I would be back in this fucking Chili's a billion trillion years from now. Or maybe matter will coalesce in new and exciting ways, like a Red Lobster's. Howdy, that's where I'm currently located. A universe where the inhabitants of Earth really goofed it, and society collapsed, and most people died in one way or another. Mostly one way. The big oopsie. And ultimately, none of it really mattered, because the whole of humanity, with all of its concerns and ambitions and creations, was like unto an ant farting in a sewage treatment facility, representing the vastness of time and space in this simile. There are, of course, alternate ideas concerning existence. My grandma told me that scientists are wrong because God made everything when he got lonely one time and then he wrote a book to let us know about it. This is the same woman who gave me a birthday present consisting of a spray-painted wooden box that was still wet, which contained a half-done crossword book, a travel deodorant, and a handful of change. So I'm not sure she gave her beliefs much scrutiny. Anyway, when I'm not too busy fighting off the local fauna or avoiding roaming bands of organ-harvesting cultists, when I have time to feel sad or lonely, I often find myself pondering things of this nature: the futility of my desires, the isolation of my individuality, the brevity of a single life compared to the vastness of time and space, and the ultimate, inevitable triumph of death over us all. These are thoughts which make me feel small and insignificant. Yet, at the same time, I feel they provide perspective and insight into the true nature of my existence. I'm able to realize that there's no point in maintaining delusions of ego, or feelings of anger, or trivial desires. The only benefit of being alive is the freedom to pursue happiness, and the comfort of knowing that ultimately you are only responsible to yourself. All else is illusory. And thus, I decided to use my fleeting time on Earth to make a dumb podcast about the show Murder, She Wrote, because I was bored. And because I found the DVD box set. No, there is no egotistical need for validation here. I am fully conscious of the contents of my subconscious, and I insist that this is an ego-free pursuit. The catharsis of creation is the only motivating factor here, and I will f*** anyone who says otherwise. If you decide that you like this podcast, please find a way to send me food or pornography. We use pornography as currency now. With most everyone here being dead, crazy, or off the grid, I was forced to seek alternate means of distribution for my podcast. I enlisted the help of some nerds, and they set me up some trans-dimensional packet radio internet shit with a microwave oven and a ham transmitter, thus allowing me to beam this garbage to all possible universes through the interdimensional ether. Presumably, a few of these universes have both live humans and the ability to receive my broadcasts. But so far, I've only heard back from one universe. One alternate version of myself specifically, henceforth referred to as Christian Beta. Christian Beta turned out to be a very uncooperative big jerk. He didn't believe what I was telling him until I sent a picture of our wiener. We have a very unique groinal situation going on. The problem is that it took 2 hours to transmit a single low-res JPEG over radio, which means that communication with alternate universes is going to be a slow process. As such, I have basically no information about your universe whatsoever. I just know the one inhabitant, and he can't be fucking bothered. However, based on the situation in my reality, and my communications with Christian Beta, I think it's safe to say that things are better in your universe. I assume that your government actually upholds the rights of its citizens and actually protects the environment instead of making meaningless gestures, and hasn't been transformed by corporate influence into a corrupt money-making apparatus that benefits a select few. And I imagine that your version of humanity has marched steadily towards progress and peace and happiness rather than fighting amongst yourselves just to survive. Well, good for you. All of those things that I just said are some of the things that happened in my world, culminating in when the fucking Shiner through Facebook Marketplace were overrun by the LGBTQ militia. And so, with all of that elucidated, I can welcome you to my podcast. She's fixing to write this here murder, y'all. The only podcast where you can hear a cynical white male express his opinion about an old TV program that I'm aware of. No, I cannot change the name because I've already drawn the logo and sent it off to the printers. Yes, even though I haven't published a single episode as of this recording, I am so confident that you will love my irreverent perspective and ungodly charm that I have commissioned t-shirts from a guy called Billy. Billy seems relatively reliable, and he gave me a good bulk rate considering he's making each shirt by hand using markers. No, I have not considered how I will sell or send the t-shirts across dimensions. I am so sure of my success that I anticipate being able to pay someone else to figure that out. Thank you for your unfounded concern. I will now discuss the first episode of Murder, She Wrote, and you will listen because I am engaging. Transition. Season 1, Episode 1, Deadly Lady. This episode first aired on September 30th, 1984.
Oh, please, 3 more paragraphs and I can go to bed.
Our story opens on a dark and stormy night. Jessica Fletcher, author and main character, is typing away in the kitchen, working under the light of a single naked bulb overhead. Anticipating a power outage at any moment, she beseeches the heavens to grant her enough time to finish the chapter she's working on. The heavens say no, and the power dies. She sighs, accepting heaven's insult with grace, and decides to retire to her sleeping chamber, defeated. According to the opening credits, someone called Dack Rambo is going to make an appearance, so we get to play a game of pin the name on the old person. As Jessica lights a kerosene lamp, there's a hullabaloo at the front door.
Jessica! Jessica, you in there?
Ethan, you shouldn't be out on a night like this.
I know that woman. You think I'm a nitwit?
Don't ask questions that beg obvious answers.
It turns out to be Jessica's friend, Captain Ethan Cragg, played by Claude Akins. This dude looks like a bootleg Andy Griffith, like a police sketch of a description of Ronald Reagan given by a nearsighted drunk child with prosopagnosia. The last captain we met was a fucking turd, so I'm not going to pull any punches with this 1950s everyman-looking chump. Speaking of appearances, Jessica doesn't look like she did in the pilot. She's not nearly as tall, and she's only mildly vascular now. I guess once they secured funding for the first season, they decided it wasn't worth the effort and toned it down. She just looks like a nice old lady now, which is disappointing. Ethan has come by to make sure that Jessica is okay. He talks about how he ain't never seen no hurricane this bad this far north, then calls the hurricane a real deadly lady. That's the name of the episode. Then he tells her that the Coast Guardians are receiving a distress signal from some folks out on a yacht and blah blah blah. Ethan goes bye-bye, and Jessica goes night-night. We then cut to a dream sequence, as indicated by a fuzzy border around the screen. Jessica is running through an abandoned, burned-out cityscape drenched in fog. She glances back, and we see a posse of what appear to be milkmen chasing after her. Milk bottles crash and clatter on the concrete around her. She turns a corner and ends up in an alley with no exit. She claws desperately at locked doors, trying to find some means of escape, but ends up with her back against a wall. The milkmen move slowly, menacingly towards her. She looks down and sees that she's wearing an adult diaper, and when she looks up, they're all wearing diapers too. And then they're upon her. 2 of them hold her, while another begins pouring milk into her mouth. The men begin to chant, "Destiny, Destiny," as they continue milk-boarding her. She begins to choke and then wakes up in bed, gasping for air. She stares directly into the camera with a vacant expression on her face. The camera slowly zooms in, and we see that she has a faint milk mustache. And then the scene ends. I think they're trying to say that she's worried about incontinence. Or milk. By the next morning, the storm is cleared. Jessica takes a jog down to the fish market, where she asks after Ethan. She's told that he took his boat out to look for those folks on the yacht. So, Jessica jogs back home, where she finds some crusty dude pruning her bushes. Which sounds like a euphemism for something.
Excuse me, this is private property.
You the lady of the house?
Yeah, I live here.
Shame to let these weeds get a toehold like this. Too good a garden to go to ruin.
Well, my marigolds are hardly going to seed. Mr.
Name's Ralph, ma'am. I'm mighty hungry, but I don't believe in taking handouts. Now, if you could spare me a good breakfast, I'd be willing to work for it.
Jessica's not sure that there's anything needs doing, so Ralph tells her that her house looks like shit and needs to be painted. Speaking of which, the house is white now. I guess some viewers felt alienated by the black house from the pilot, and or the producers were cowards. Anyway, Jessica agrees to let him work for some reason, and then invites him inside for some eggies for some reason. Rudolph says he's been hoboing for years and years, but he's a good hobo because he works for his meals. Then he notices one of Jessica's books on the table and picks it up, saying he read and enjoyed it. He notices Jessica's portrait on the back and does an exaggerated double take.
You wrote this.
I did?
Mrs. Fletcher, you astound me.
Oh, Ralph. You're not astounded at all. As a matter of fact, you're full of clam dip.
Jessica proceeds to call him out on his goddamn bullshit. He ain't read that book because it's a pre-publication sample. Then she points out that his clothes may be faded, but they're custom-tailored. And on his wrist, there's evidence that he usually wears a watch.
Truth is, Miss Fletcher, I have been bumming around. But like you just guessed, it hasn't been for long. My company just retired me after 42 years, gave me a small pension and the proverbial gold watch. Then all of a sudden I realized there was a whole lot of this world that I hadn't seen.
He goes on to explain that he's decided to see the world from the ground up, rather than ride a tour bus with the other seniors. Taking a bus or becoming a hobo are not the only 2 options, I'm pretty sure, but what do I know? I'm not an old.
Hello?
Miss Fletcher, Amos Tupper.
Oh, good morning, Sheriff.
I hate to be a bother to you, ma'am, but Ethan Craig just towed in that yacht.
Well, those people all right?
Oh, they're fine. Yacht's got some damage. Right now, it's anchored out past the point. Miss Fletcher, something mighty peculiar has happened down here.
Well, what do you mean by peculiar, Sheriff?
I mean maybe murder peculiar.
And that's the magic word. Murder, not peculiar. Jessica heads down to the docks, leaving the creepy lying man alone in her house for some unfucking fathomable reason. Presumably to make the plot do a thing later. Cut to the docks, where Ethan and one Sheriff Amos Tupper are waiting for her. Sheriff Amos has hella jowls, and that's all I got on him for the time being. Amon and Ethos are in the middle of a heated argument when Jessica rides up on her bike.
Jessica, I told this old fool you shouldn't be coming down
Ethan,
here.
will you zip it up? I'm conducting official business.
And I'm telling you, there wasn't any murder. Those nice little girls couldn't murder anyone, especially their own daddy.
Well, one of you adolescents, please tell me what's happening.
Well,
Some rich fella named Stephen Earl sells some kind of makeup.
Yes, cosmetics. Market Pearl. I know it.
Yeah, well, it seems that he was out sailing with his 4 daughters. That's them right over there. And last night, during the storm...
Sheriff, why don't you let the little ladies tell it
Ethan,
themselves instead of you interrupting?
Good idea.
So, some makeup mogul called Mr. Earl and his 4 30-something daughters, referred to here as little girls, were out on their yacht when the storm hit and their daddy was swept into the sea. Jessica goes down to the boat to meet the women and hear their account.
This is Nancy Earl.
Nan.
Hello, Nan.
Hello.
Oh, that's lovely. Did you knit that yourself?
No, but I designed it.
Oh, it's delightful.
Thank you. Maggie Earl. I read your latest book. It was a hoot.
Well, thanks. It was a hoot to write.
And this is Lisa Earl.
Shelby.
Shelby.
Lisa Earl Shelby. My husband has been notified he is on his way.
Oh, how nice.
And I'm Grace Earl Lamont. My husband hasn't been notified. As a matter of fact, he left 4 years ago, and no one's heard from him since.
We're introduced to the following women. Nancy Earle, designer of ugly 80s sweaters. Her current piece is pink with blue sleeves and a black cummerbund thing around the waist. Très avant-garde. Maggie Earle, known to be literate. Lisa Earle Shelby, insolent, married to a husband in transit. Grace Earle Lamont, has glasses. Fiancé runned away. Jessica leads the group into some sort of boat garage packed with nautical set dressing. Lisa and Grace spin their yarn, attempting to pull the wool over Jessica's eyes. They're really threading the needle, but we'll see who's pulling the strings. They really lay on the rayon, and cotton they're plotting. Alright, that's it.
We left Bridgeport 4 days ago.
Just the four of you?
And Daddy.
We'd been at sea for 3 nights, Mrs. Fletcher. And we knew there was a storm approaching, but we thought surely that it would go back out to sea before it came up this far north.
Well, they usually do.
Well, by the time we realized our mistake, it was too late. The 4 of us were huddled below deck, and I think it was a little past midnight, and we were about 3 miles due east of Monhegan Island. The boat was yawing very badly, and we all suddenly realized at the same time that Father was still topside. It was Lisa who got up there first.
And the wind was raging, the rain was coming down in sheets I could barely see. Just then was when I got up there, and I saw Lisa going towards Father, and all of a sudden a huge wave hit the side of the boat, and he was washed overboard instantly.
It was horrible.
I did my best. I struggled to try to get to the rail to him, but he was already gone. It was already too late. And by this time, Maggie and Nan had also gotten up on deck, and we all realized at once that it was hopeless.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yes. Apparently not to your sheriff. What about you, Mrs. Fletcher?
Me?
Jessica withholds comment, and Sheriff Amos points out that the women stand to gain around $100 million from the death of their father. He suspects foul play and refuses to move forward until they're able to examine the body. Ethan tactfully explains that old body should wash up in a day or so. Frustrated, the women return to the yacht to get their belongings.
Okay, Miss Fletcher, what do you think now?
Well, I doubt any of them will be wearing black very long.
I'm talking about foul play. $100 million is a whale of a motive.
Amos, you've been reading too many of Jessica's books.
Well, that's how much you know, Ethan. I haven't read any of them.
Jessica goes back to the boat and invites the ladies to stay at her house. Lisa declares that they're staying at the local inn and marches off. Nancy and Maggie politely thank her for the offer and follow, but Grace stays behind.
I really must apologize for my sister, Mrs. Fletcher. I'm afraid that tact was never really one of Lisa's virtues.
Well, I'm sure you're all upset.
Actually, it's quite to the contrary. There really was very little love lost between Stephen Earle and his daughters. Why should there be? He was the one who broke up my marriage. And he was always meddling in Nan's private life. And he turned poor Maggie into nothing but a dull housefrau. To tell you the truth, I don't think there's a one of us that's sorry to see him dead.
Jessica returns home and immediately gets a call from someone at the phone company, who she knows by name because she's close friends with everyone in town. They're calling to tell on Ralph. Apparently, he made a long-distance call amounting to $9-something, so he's gonna get it. Or as we say here, she's gonna fix his wagon, which I've always assumed meant they would sabotage the wagon so the wheels fell off, or like glue BBs to the inside of the valve caps to drain the air from the wagon tires. She finds him in the backyard where he's fallen asleep in her hammock listening to Mozart on a Walkman. A Walkman is a portable electronic device for playing cassette tapes. Cassette tape's like a very long skinny brown CD, but the music is drawn on it with a magnet instead of a laser, and the music sounds worse. Anyway, he says he's done what he can without buying supplies.
You didn't by any chance call France for an estimate?
What?
The phone company just called with the charges for your Paris call. $9.97. Must have been a very short conversation.
No, that's Paris, Kentucky. I've got a friend who's a horse breeder down there. Don't worry, I'll take care of the charges.
Is that before or after the horse comes in?
He says it's nothing like that and changes the subject, asking about her telephone call. She tells him that it was just an accident rather than a murder. And then she tells him to get back to fucking work. He puts a hand on her shoulder and leads her in the house, which was acceptable behavior from a vagrant in a small town in the 80s, I guess. He shows her a spot where the house is dissolving or something and says he needs Momo to buy supplies. And then, in a heart-wrenching exchange, he reveals that besides eating, he loves to smoke.
I guess besides a good meal, the thing I enjoy most is a good pipe. Your husband's?
Yes.
He had good taste. Fine-looking meerschaum.
Please, take it.
Oh, no, I couldn't do that.
Ralph, I want you to have it. Better you should smoke it than it should sit there gathering dust.
In a selfless display, Jessica has given the overly familiar tramp her dead husband's gaudy pipe. After this tear-inducing scene, we cut to a helicopter, and the noise of the engine is so loud by comparison that I shit my pants. And it continues for over a minute straight. That unnecessary scene ends with some suit getting out of a helicopter. And then we're in the office of the local constabulary, which is obvious because the phones won't shut up. Sheriff Amos is being grilled by Suit Guy, who turns out to be the husband, a little grumpy, a.k.a. Lisa.
Naturally, I'm as upset as anyone over the death of Mr. Earl.
Yeah.
But even in our grief, we have to face reality. I mean, the mark of the Earl could be thrown into a financial tailspin if this whole thing is mishandled. We need action fast, Sheriff.
What do you suggest?
An immediate coroner's inquest so that the reins of leadership can pass quickly on to his successor.
Well, I can appreciate you've got some kind of a problem, Mr. Earl.
Shelby.
Shelby, but I'm not holding any inquest till we find that body.
Amos ain't taking no guff from no fancy-pants Dack Rambo. Yeah, the husband is Dack Rambo, and I was wrong. He ain't that old. As a matter of fact, I'd like to prune his bushes if you know what I mean. And apparently so does the camera operator. They're framing Dack in a weirdly low cowboy shot, so from the knees up, and the camera keeps moving around to get a view of Dack's shapely bottom. He's visibly uncomfortable and keeps checking on the camera and twisting around to keep his butt out of the shot. By the end of the scene, he's not even facing Amos and is backed up against a desk, and you can clearly hear someone's heavy breathing. We cut back to Jessica and Ralph having a heart-to-heart discussion about their dead spouses and getting sentimental and whatnot. Jessica reveals that she never had children, and that is all the character development I can stand for the moment. Ralph tells Jessica that he'll be gone for the night. He has business to attend to. Oboe business. Not to worry, and don't wait up. After he leaves, Jessica goes to the sink to wash dishes. We get an insert of the water draining, and then see a look of realization spread across her face. At this point, the plot really starts chugging.
Ethan, where are you? Ethan?
Well, I'm where I'm supposed to be. What are you doing down here?
I came to get your help and advice.
You came to get my help and advice? Well, there's a first time for everything.
Using Ethan's ocean maps or charts, water whereabout indicators, whatever, Jessica plots the movement of the hurricane against the yacht's reported location that night. She then wonders aloud how they could know their exact location in the midst of such a storm. Cut to Jessica, Ethan, and Amos at the hotel questioning the ladies, while the husband stands around looking pretty disgruntled.
Mrs. Fletcher, the story that we told you is true.
No, Grace, I'm afraid not. You see, you said that shortly after midnight, your father was swept overboard.
Yes, that's right.
And that you were 3 miles due east of Monhegan Island?
Yes.
Well, at that time and at that place, your yacht would have been in the eye of the hurricane. The sea would have been dead calm.
Well, they obviously had their position wrong.
That's it. We were lost.
Yes, we were just lost.
No!
Maggie, please don't.
We were not lost. And he was not swept overboard. Mrs. Fletcher's right. My father's death was no accident. I killed him.
Maggie goes on to explain that Pop didn't drop last night. Rather, it was the night before. He was drunk and instigated an argument. She keeps getting quieter and really breathy, and it's making me uncomfortable.
I had a gun in my purse. I keep it for protection. He came towards me. I vaguely remember taking it out. Firing twice. Then we were down below when we heard the shots.
Lisa and the others interject in an attempt to cover their own asses, and I can't tell if they're bad at acting or good at taking shitty direction. They try to justify the murder by saying how much their dad sucked, but that doesn't seem to do it for Amos, who escorts Maggie to the jailhouse. As you might expect from such as he, Rack Dambo vows to get the best lawyer in the country. In the hotel lobby, Jessica and Ethan meet with a journalist who's appeared without any explanation and brought along an article he's written about the death of Mr. Earl, including an old photograph of that selfsame man. Upon seeing this, Jessica tells Ethan that they must immediately away to her house.
Ralph? Hello?
Ralph? Who the hell is Ralph?
Ralph? Are you here?
Jessica. What is going on here?
Ralph!
Jessica.
He was here, Ethan. I know he was here.
Who was it? Ralph?
No, Stephen Earl.
Stephen Earl? The dead fella?
He's not dead.
Of course he is.
He's not dead. He was right here, Ethan.
Stephen Earl.
Oh, Ralph. Except that Stephen Earl and Ralph are the same person. I talked to him. He polished off 2 plates of boiled scrot right there. At least I think he was.
That's more like it.
Ethan, I am convinced that he was right here. He was just as alive as you or I. Now, I don't know why those girls are lying, but tomorrow I am going to find that man, and I'm going to prove to you that I'm not Dottie.
You are Dottie. Sometimes you spin around more in a circle than a Roman candle on the 4th of July, like now. But if you feel that strong, least I can do is help you look.
First off, I have no idea what boiled scrot is. I don't really want to know. And second, if Ethan's a recurring character, I really hope he delivers a new folksy idiom every episode. At the beach, we see 2 children and dog. The girl child finds a dead body, and it's Ralph. She then emits an unnecessarily loud scream. Whoever did the mixing on this episode is an asshole. Luckily, I'd already removed my soiled britches by this point, and I was sitting on a milk crate, so it just sort of went on through the gaps. Speaking of mysteries, the next person to come into this freezer is really going to wonder what went on in here. I performed my daily ablutions while watching, and so they'll have to piece it together from the following clues. Some soiled undergarments, a soiled milk carton, an assortment of finger and toenail clippings, hair from a variety of sources, and a vague letter of apology written on a typewriter. Next, we cut to a local funeral parlor where Amos asks the daughters not in jail to confirm the identity of the body, which they do. Elias Cobb, the Habsburg-jawed mortician, tries to sell him a funeral, but Amos tells him to shove it because the coroner will be coming to get the body for an autopsy. I guess you could say the lives of these ladies have become autopsy-turvy. Outside, Jessica speaks to Amos and gets confirmation that the body is in fact Ralph. She offers her condolences to the women, who seem to be actually upset now. Then an unnecessarily loud car pulls up, and out steps Nancy's normally long-distance fiancé, Terry. He comforts Nan and tells her that he came from Kentucky as soon as he heard the news, which is convenient.
About a year ago, he and Nan were engaged, and he just walked out of her life. He sure picked the right time to show up again.
Jessica then goes into the mortuary to pay her respects.
Looks peaceful, don't he?
No, Mr. Cobb, he looks dead, and I am very angry about it.
Jessica asks how long he reckons the body was in the water, but Elias don't know shit. As an aside, the name Terry reminds me of a burger place we used to have in Austin called P. Terry's. I sent them several emails explaining in no uncertain terms that they had an obligation to sponsor a Little League team and call them the Pterodactyls, but they never responded. Next, we see Grumpy Lisa, a.k.a. Greasa, having a sinister discussion with her husband Dack.
Don't try and convince me that you love that old barracuda.
He was my father.
I know. And suddenly you were overwhelmed by these pangs of filial remorse. Very, very touching, sweetheart.
You are disgusting.
And you're stupid. What was this business about some storm accident? Lying for Maggie that way.
She's my sister.
She's also entitled to 1/4 of the estate. Unless, of course, she is guilty, and then she's out of the will, and your share increases by about $8 or $9 million. Did that ever occur to you, dear sweet wife?
He goes on to say that Nancy won't be a problem, what with her sweater career keeping her occupied. So that only leaves Grace to get rid of. He's basically steepling his fingers evilly by this point, and Lisa delivers a line, "What are you saying?" like she's doped up on tranquilizers, and Dack, well... Meanwhile, Amos drags Maggie out for an interrogation, and in accordance with standard police procedure and plot necessity...
Miss Fletcher has to be here. I hope you have no objections.
Of course not.
Amos tells her that they found her father's body with 2 shots to the chest, just as she described it.
That's impossible. He can't be dead.
She declares that her story was a lie, that he left the yacht voluntarily, on a rubber dinghy, The whole thing was a scheme to trick Nancy's gold-digging fiancé.
When Terry showed up over a year ago, Father had him checked out. He was obviously only interested in Nan's money, so Father paid him off.
A bribe.
Over $500,000. Dad set one condition. Nan was not to know about the payment.
Mr. Earl became convinced that Terry would come back, so they cooked up a situation which would reveal his true intentions to Nancy. Amos is confused, as am I.
Ladies, I've still got a dead body with 2 bullets in his chest.
Yes, and I'm also sure you have a dead body with a pipe in his pocket.
Jessica explains that she gave Rudy the pipe when he was at her house the day before. Then she tells Amos that she anticipates the coroner will find 1, that the body was not in the water for 3 days, and 2, that the bullets were not fired from Maggie's gun. And Amos is like, what? Well, folks, it's now time for a short break of an advertisial nature. I'm sorry. Are you tired of wearing whatever ugly old rags you managed to scavenge? Do you wish your bland, shit and or bloodstained garments better represented your unique personality or cult affiliation? Do you have trade goods? Well, come on down to Billy's Bivouac. He's got bleach, a can of green spray paint, and a wide selection of markers, with 9 exciting colors to choose from. Custom designs and a basic grasp of spelling, Billy does it all. He's the closest thing to an artist in the immediate area, and he's somewhere around his tent 24 hours a day. Low prices and special discount rates if you're willing to perform sexual favors. Ask about his family plan. Conveniently located near the South Porn Market under the remains of the overpass. Look for the tent with the green spray-painted underwear stapled to it. And remember, you'd be stupid not to come to Billy. Please don't email me about the slogan. I pointed out that silly rhymes with Billy, and he told me to shut up and read it as written or he'd hurt me with his kicks. And Billy's got serious scams. Our next sponsor is the Ghost of This Chili's. For offering me protection from the elements, I feel an obligation to say a few words in favor of this historic establishment. Chili's was a restaurant founded in Texas in the 1970s. They were operational until their headquarters and most of their restaurants were firebombed by a religious group claiming that Ronald McDonald was a graven image and or the Antichrist or something. Ronald McDonald was an anthropomorphic pervert mascot for a totally different restaurant called McDonald's. For whatever reason, the Vox Superiorites believed that Chili's was part of a McDonald's umbrella corporation's Ibatsu something or other. To be fair, things were pretty chaotic at the time, and their followers were easily confused. Anyway, Chili's served mediocre American-style food, like mediocre hamburgers and mediocre buffalo wings and mediocre fajitas. I was first herded into a Chili's as a lad and ate there as little as possible from that point on. I mostly remember the decoration of the interior, which consisted of miscellaneous knickknacks and baubles nailed to every available surface, as if a garage sale had thrown up. The tables were topped by a random arrangement of arabesque tiles, accented by stains of queso and salsa, which had been lovingly smeared into the grout over the course of many years. My aunt and uncle thought the tables were really cool, so they found the manufacturer and bought some for their dining room. As for the food, Chili's was never about the food. Food is ephemeral, a passing fancy. Chili's was about sitting in the midst of dusty junk, attempting to have a conversation over the noise of crying babies, and trying not to touch any unclean surfaces, which was all of them. The only time I went to Chili's as an adult, it was for irony, and all of the things I'd known were gone. It was just another quick-service restaurant designed by a committee, serving microwave food and corn syrup margaritas. Chili's fucking sucked, dude. Anyway, I guess I said more than a few words, and they really weren't in favor of the restaurant, but whatever. Chili's can't hurt me anymore. Whoa, big metal shelf just fell over as soon as I said that. Mondo Bizarro. If I'd been sitting near it, I could have gotten a bruise or something. Well, back to the show, I guess. I'm sorry. In an attempt to track down Nancy's husband, Jessica returns to the hotel where the ladies are staying. The concierge, who knows Jessica by name for some reason, tells her that Terry and Nancy have gone to the local church. How does she know where they went upon leaving the hotel? Because it's in the script, I guess. On her way out, Jessica runs into Lisa, Donk, and Maggie, who has been unarrested. As predicted, the coroner has determined that the bullets were not fired from Maggie's gun, and the body has not been in the drink more than 12 hours. Jessica remarks that the question now is, who did shoot Ralph?
Oh, Mrs. Fletcher. You know, you seem like a very sweet old gal. This is a family affair. We don't need strangers poking their noses where they don't belong.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Shelby, but Mr. Earl was no stranger. Not to me. And as for my nose, it's right where it belongs.
Meanwhile, Nancy and Terry are having a stroll through the graveyard and discussing their relationship. Terry explains that Mr. Earl threatened to ruin him if he didn't stay away from Nancy. Then he starts saying how much he loves her, now he wants to get married as soon as possible. I'm not sure why, but this tactic doesn't seem to work. Upset, Nancy leaves. Ready to fucking rumble, Jessica arrives. She introduces herself and then jumps right up his ass.
Now that the amenities are over, let's talk about who killed Stephen Earl. Outside the mortuary, you said you heard of the death of Stephen Earl this morning on the early news broadcast in Kentucky and flew right in. In reality, you learned of his death yesterday, around noon, from Stephen Earl himself.
That's crazy.
Well, the telephone company says otherwise. Well, suppose we let Sheriff Tupper decide. Good day, Mr. Jones.
Wait, I did get a call yesterday from a newspaper reporter. At least he said he was a reporter. Could have been the old man. He was quite an actor, you know.
I know that.
Told me about the shooting aboard the yacht, claimed he knew about my previous relationship with Nan Earl, wanted to comment, so I gave him one. You're a lady, so I won't repeat it.
I am familiar with most Anglo-Saxon words, Mr. Jones. Then what?
I flew here.
Yesterday. Not this morning.
That's right. Look, before you get the wrong idea, let me tell you what really happened, okay?
That would be helpful.
He says that Maggie believes in him, whatever the fuck that means. Apparently, she revealed the entrapment plot to Nancy, who then came to meet Terry upon his arrival 2 days ago. They spent that night together, and he was planning to return to Kentucky the next morning when he heard the news that Ralph was actually dead. He showed up to be with Nancy in her time of grief, he said, lyingly.
Mrs. Fletcher, I know what you think, but you're wrong. I love Nan deeply, and she loves me, and very frankly, nothing you or anybody else can do is going to change that.
I don't understand the relevance of any of this, but Jessica appears to, so I will leave the thinking to her. Jessica heads to the police station and asks a weirdly accented lady on duty where Sheriff Amos am.
I know things are pretty casual in this town, Miss Fletcher, but there's times when I got to maintain strict confidentiality.
Then this lady gets a phone call from someone called Elroy, and she tells him exactly where Amos is, what he's doing, and the details of an anonymous note they received, with Jessica standing right behind her. There was a period in time where people used to eat lead-based paint, which is supposed to cause brain problems. Well, apparently this lady was some sort of lead paint gourmand as a child, and the object-permanence part of her brain was completely dissolved. Well, Jessica has all the information she needs now, so she sprints out the door and heads to the beach.
Miss Fletcher, hold on there.
When Jessica arrives at the beach, Amos and Ethan are antagonizing one another and looking for evidence. Amos shows her the note, and she asks if he's dusted for fingerprints.
I don't suppose you dusted this for fingerprints.
Not after Emma got through with it. Look, that's peanut butter, that's jelly, and Lord knows what that is.
I don't know who Emma is, but I can certainly guess. They eventually find a pair of pink high heels with one of the heels broken off. For the uninformed, high heels were a type of fashion shoe meant to make one appear taller in exchange for excruciating pain and disfigurement. I never really understood the appeal of a shoe that hurts your feet rather than protects them. I guess it was just some sort of cultural thing like foot binding or eating ass. Anyway, Jessica immediately knows where to look for the missing heel, and she's certain that they belong to Nancy. Cut to Nancy's hotel room, where the occupant of said room immediately admits that the shoes belong to her, and were in fact designed by her. So she designs shoddy-made shoes as well. It seems I was too quick to judge this particular book by its unsightly frumpy cover. Jessica asks her to try the shoes on, even though Nancy has just admitted that they're hers. Humor me, Jessica says, plottingly. Well, they don't fit. No, they do. And that's all the convincing that Amos needs.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm going to have to arrest you for the murder of Stephen Earl.
Oh, Sheriff, for pity's sake, Nan's not guilty.
Oh, maybe not in one of your books, but this is evidence enough for me. Anyway, you're the one who told me right from the start that they were her shoes.
Her shoes, yes, but I never said she was guilty of murder.
Jessica ponders for a moment and then asks Amos to take Nancy into protective custody. She then tells both of them to keep their fucking gobs shut about this.
She's scheming, y'all.
After hearing about the arrest, Terry shows up at the police station and begins grilling Amos. Well, I guess he left him on the grill too long because he got burned.
Charge is murder, Mr.
Jones.
Jones, you're plain and simple.
Yeah, well, plain and simple sounds more like you, Sheriff.
Got him. Fucking sick, dude. Well, I guess that's why they call him Terry, the Terror of Kentucky Jones. Anyway, Amos sets Terry up by saying an anonymous note claims the murder occurred earlier that evening, at a time when Terry and Nancy were away from their hotel. Amos then insinuates that he suspects Terry of being an accomplice.
Look, I can't believe Nan's guilty. But if she is, if she did kill him earlier and then came to meet me, well, I wouldn't know anything about that.
Well, I hope not.
So, Terry backpedals, and when Amos offers to let him see Nancy, he claims he has business to take care of elsewhere. After Terry leaves, Amos opens the side door to reveal Nancy. She done heard it all, y'all. Outside the hotel, the other members of this fucking family are having a goddamn hootenanny, which is, of course, far too loud. Maggie, Grace, Lisa, and Dork stumble into the hotel drunk after celebrating Maggie's release. Jessica is poised in the lobby like a spider awaiting some wealthy rude flies. She's there to inform them that Nancy has been arrested and explains about the found footwear, except she says only that they found a broken heel.
Wait a minute, you found a heel but no shoes?
That's right. Look, this is very presumptuous and probably quite insulting, but I do know how sisters are. I know how they trade off clothes and, well, is it possible that one of you could have worn those shoes?
Yes, you are right, Mrs. Fletcher. That is very insulting.
Is it also possible that she could have made a mistake, that the heel was not off her shoes?
What are you saying? You want to search our rooms?
Well, something like that.
Well, you're not going to search mine, lady. Not without a search warrant, and certainly not by you. Come on, Brian, let's go to bed.
Lisa is acting as hard as she can, but it just doesn't work. She and Dork stalk off. Grace says she has nothing to hide and tells Jessica to search away. Maggie says she's welcome to search her room, but she doesn't wear pink. During all of this, Jessica's been holding a brown bag of unknown contents. She asks Maggie to deliver it to the sheriff when he arrives in the morning, and then leaves. The sinister machinations of another Fletcher plot are about to be revealed. Back at Jessica's house, we see a black-clad figure break the glass on the front door, and then reach through to unlock it. Then we see this unknown person sneaking around a bit. They start up the stairs, at which point Jessica turns on a lamp and calls out from her chair in the living room. It's a, "I've caught you sneaking out again, Megan," type setup. The identity of the sneakster is revealed to be...
You were expecting me, weren't you?
You know I was.
I wasn't sure. But after I opened the paper bag and found this, I knew it was a message. I slipped, didn't I?
Just before we entered Grace's room, you said you didn't wear pink.
And you never mentioned that the shoes were pink, did you?
No, I didn't.
It's Maggie, and the bag Jessica gave her contained the broken heel, if that wasn't clear. Jessica explains that she suspected Maggie from the start, that everything indicated an attempt to set up Nancy. Maggie revealed their father's plot to Nancy in order to get her out of the hotel during the time of the murder, thus making her the most likely suspect. At this point, Maggie breaks down crying and whines about how she hates her dad and Nancy because she didn't get enough love and blah 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 blah. After she's done blubbering, she turns her mind to the practical matter of murdering Jessica. However, unbeknownst to Maggie, is the fact that Jessica is the main character of this 12-season television show.
I'm sorry. I like you. I really do. But I have to protect myself.
Oh, my goodness. You're not threatening me, are you?
It will all look very natural. You were home alone, a defenseless widow. A burglar came in. You surprised him. There was a struggle.
Maggie, really, for a clever woman, you've devised a terrible scenario. First of all, we have no burglars in Cabot Cove. Secondly, and I suppose more to the point, the minute I heard that back window shatter, I called Sheriff Tupper. He has been listening in to this entire conversation. Sheriff, you better get over here. I have a young woman here who wants to surrender herself into your custody.
The real mystery of this episode is the mystery of who the fuck thought the line, "There are no burglars in Cabot Cove," was remotely plausible. It was the 1980s. Everyone was an asshole by then. Is Cabot Cove in some sort of Twilight Zone, Town Beyond Time type scenario? Yes, absolutely. That is now Murder, She Wrote canon. Now that Maggie has had her crime explained to her, she is no longer capable of hurting Jessica and will wait quietly for the authorities to arrive. So we cut to Nancy, who delivers the denouement in about a minute. It amounts to, Dad was a jerk, but he was right about Terry. She thanks Jessica, promises to write to her for some reason, and drives off. Ethan conveniently shows up at that exact moment and offers Jessica a ride.
We just took those other three out to their yacht.
That was nice of you to ferry them out, Ethan.
Nothing nice about it. I was glad to get rid of them. People like that deserve one another.
Then he invites Jessica fishing, so they go fishing. We see them together in a small boat, and the yacht is visible in the distance. The camera slowly zooms in on the yacht, and we see a nude Dack Rambo, and he's helicoptering his wiener, and he just does it non-stop while the credits roll. And that's it for this episode. Conclusion. This was a mediocre episode for the following reasons. First, shitty sound recording / mixing. And yes, I know that I'm not very good at mixing either. The difference is I'm not getting paid here. Second, weird acting from some of the characters. Not Angela Lansbury, obviously, because she's the goddamn best. Third, that sweater was really ugly. Was that really the most fashionable item of clothing they could come up with? And fourth, the fact that they chickened out on the 8-foot-tall version of Jessica from the pilot. To summarize, I enjoyed it. I like Jessica, and I like to watch her pursue the truth no matter whose toes she steps on or how ridiculous her leaps of logic are. I only wish that I had that sort of self-esteem, or a writer to shape the events of my life to make me seem smart. So it goes. Unanswered questions from this episode. Why wouldn't they just tell Nancy that her fiancé Terry took a payoff to ditch her? Would not that have had the same effect of showing that he was a turd? Folks, here's some wasteland wisdom. Healthy relationships are founded on honesty and communication. I may live in a dystopian nightmare, but it's still true. Not every wasteland wisdom is going to be about, turning old street signs into shoes or whatever. Another unanswered question. Did Jessica take back her deceased husband's pipe? It could be a cool insight into her character or something. You know what I mean? It would say something about her either way, you know? Yeah, you get it. Finally, Rack Dambo's sinister scheming just dropped completely off the fucking map. After Maggie's exonerated, he's out drinking with the sisters, tells Jessica to fuck off, and then he's never seen again. Well, until the credits. So what was the point of setting up that side plot? Could the writers have been padding the script with forced intrigue? No, of course not. How dare I? Well, thanks for listening. If you didn't hate this, leave a review somewhere. Anywhere will do. And please like, favorite, and subscribe, ring the bell, and leave a comment below. I don't remember what any of that means or what it's specific to, but just trying to cover my ass here. You can try to contact me at the following email address, SFTWTHMY@hotmail.com. Considering my internet access situation, I may or may not receive your email. If I do receive it, I may or may not respond because I may or may not care what you have to say. Please keep listening to my podcast. Okay, I love you, bye. Next week on She's Fixin' to Write This Here Murder, y'all.
I'm not particularly proud of what I had to do to earn that money, but I did it. And I want what's coming to me.
But don't you ever touch me like that again.
You don't seem exactly broken up over Drake's death.
I'll tell you what. I'll split a bouquet with you.
If I love him, how can I justify spying on him?
For your own peace of mind.
No reasonable person could assume for one moment that I had anything to do with Hal's death.
No, other than the fact that you despise the man.